Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. The village of Asahi slept beneath a pale blue morning, quiet as a held breath. Wind gently stirred the rice fields. Cranes glided between distant hills. And high above, where the sky stretched like a vast sheet of untouched paper, the clouds drifted slowly, soft, white, and unmarked, except for one. A long, thin stroke of silver ran through it, as though someone had brushed ink across its surface. Most people never noticed it, but Sora did. Sora, the girl who watched the sky more than the ground. Sora, who carried a bamboo brush in her hair like other girls carried ribbons. Sora, who believed, even if no one else did, that the sky could read. She climbed the grassy hill behind her home, breath soft in the cool morning, and stood alone beneath the drifting clouds. "They're changing again," she whispered. The brush in her hair warmed, as if answering. Sora's grandmother had always said she was born with the sky's attention, that the moment she opened her eyes as a baby, the clouds above the house had shifted into a shape like an enormous eye gazing back. "Some children draw," her grandmother would say, folding a paper crane. "But you are drawn to." Her grandmother's words lived inside her like a quiet lantern. But the villagers didn't see Sora as chosen. They saw her as strange. A girl who talked to clouds. A girl who believed they talked back. A girl who wrote messages into the morning mist, hoping they might rise. Yet none of that stopped her, because Sora could feel it, the way a musician feels the tremble of a distant note, or a bird feels the shift of the wind before a storm. Something in the sky was waiting, and today it felt closer than ever. She reached the top of the hill, where a flat stone waited like a desk carved for the wind. The stone had been here longer than the village, older than the first harvest, older than memory, but Sora had claimed it as her writing table since she was little. She knelt beside it. She slid the bamboo brush from her hair, and the clouds, as if sensing her touch, drifted lower. The wind quieted. The world listened. Sora dipped her brush into the small pot of sky water she carried everywhere. A shimmering, pale blue liquid said to be collected from morning dew touched by moonlight. Her grandmother had taught her how to make it. "It helps the wind read your words," she'd said. Sora touched the tip of the brush to the stone. Instantly, the air tightened. She wrote a single character. A small one, a humble one. "Hello." The wind stirred. The clouds rippled. And then, soft as a sigh, the silver stroke she'd woken to that morning shimmered like a beckoning line of ink. Sora's heart raced. The sky was answering. Her fingers trembled. "Are you speaking to me?" she whispered. The cloud stroke lengthened, slowly, deliberately, forming a curve. Sora froze. It wasn't just a shape. It was a reply. A letter. Not a word she knew. Not a word she had ever seen. But a word directed at her. The sky was writing back. She pressed her palm to her chest. Her heartbeat had become a storm. For years she had written to the sky. Short poems. Wishes she never spoke aloud. Questions she could never ask anyone else. Sometimes the clouds thinned. Sometimes they darkened. Sometimes they glowed. But this was the first time the sky had formed an answer unmistakably shaped like a message. Sora lifted her brush again. "What do you want to tell me?" she breathed. She didn't expect an answer. Yet the clouds trembled. And then, slowly, painfully, beautifully, another thin stroke appeared beside the first. Sora studied it. Her grandmother had taught her dozens of ancient scripts, but this one, it looked older, like it belonged to a time when the world still whispered to itself. She whispered the word aloud. Return. A chill rippled down her spine. Return, what? The clouds shifted again. A third character began forming, but it was unstable, flickering, shaking like a candle in a storm. Sora held her breath, and the character shattered like torn paper. The wind roared through the hills. The clouds recoiled. Pain struck her chest, as though something far above had cried out. Wait! Sora shouted, reaching upward. But the sky closed. The clouds faded back into their ordinary shapes. The world exhaled, and Sora was alone once more. Except she wasn't. A faint glimmer remained in the air. A silver drop of cloud ink drifted gently downward and landed on the stone before her. A gift, a sign, piece of the sky. Sora touched it, and the moment her skin met its glow, a voice echoed in her mind. Find the ink that fell. Sora gasped and dropped the silver speck. The echo faded instantly. Her pulse raced. What ink? She whispered. Where did it fall? The sky gave no answer, but Sora felt it, felt the pull deep in her bones, felt the truth written in the wind itself. Something ancient had woken, something that needed her, and something that had written that single terrifying message. Return. But return what? Or return who? Sora gathered her brush, tied up her hair, and clutched the tiny silver droplet in her palm. For the first time in her life, the sky hadn't been just a dream. It had spoken, and tomorrow, she would find the ink that fell, because this wasn't just the beginning of a conversation. It was the beginning of a calling. Sora didn't know where to begin searching. The sky had dropped only a single speck of ink into her palm, a piece of something larger, something that had shattered. But ink didn't simply fall. Not from the sky, not from a cloud that wrote. It must have landed somewhere, somewhere close. She walked beyond the village fields, heading toward the forest edge. Her grandmother once told her, when the sky leaves a sign, look where the wind slows. So she followed the stillness, and soon she found it, a clearing she had never seen before, silent, untouched, and ringed by cedar trees whose branches did not sway. In the center of the clearing lay a small pool of water, still as glass, dark as ink. Sora stepped closer. Her breath caught. Floating on the water's surface were fragments, thin, shimmering pieces like broken letters made of cloud light. They glowed faintly, then faded, then glowed again. She knelt, heart pounding. This must be it, she murmured. The ink that fell. But when she reached out to touch the water, a rippling voice rose from its surface. Do not disturb the broken word. Sora froze. The water shifted. A figure formed inside the pool. The outline of a woman, tall, elegant. Her form made from vapor and glimmering threads of cloud ink. Her eyes were soft, yet ancient enough to remember storms that had no names. Sora whispered, Who are you? The figure bowed her head slightly. A scribe of the sky. Sora's breath trembled. Then you wrote to me? The scribe shook her head slowly. No, child of the brush. The one who wrote to you is older than I. Sora's skin prickled. Older than a scribe? Older than skyscrapers? Older than the clouds that shifted like ink? Who? She asked. The water rippled, and the scribe's voice dimmed. A missing hand, a silenced writer, a name erased from the sky. Sora didn't know where to begin searching. The sky had dropped only a single speck of ink into her palm, a piece of something larger, something that had shattered. But ink didn't simply fall. Not from the sky, not from a cloud that wrote. It must have landed somewhere, somewhere close. She walked beyond the village fields, heading toward the forest edge. Her grandmother once told her, "When the sky leaves a sign, look where the wind slows." So she followed the stillness, and soon she found it, a clearing she had never seen before, silent, untouched, and ringed by cedar trees whose branches did not sway. In the center of the clearing lay a small pool of water, still as glass, dark as ink. Sora stepped closer. Her breath caught. Floating on the water's surface were fragments, thin, shimmering pieces like broken letters made of cloud light. They glowed faintly, then faded, then glowed again. She knelt, heart pounding. "This must be it," she murmured. The ink that fell. But when she reached out to touch the water, a rippling voice rose from its surface. "Do not disturb the broken word." Sora froze. The water shifted. A figure formed inside the pool. The outline of a woman, tall, elegant. Her form made from vapor and glimmering threads of cloud ink. Her eyes were soft, yet ancient enough to remember storms that had no names. Sora whispered, "Who are you?" The figure bowed her head slightly. "A scribe of the sky." Sora's breath trembled. "Then you wrote to me?" The scribe shook her head slowly. "No, child of the brush. The one who wrote to you is older than I." Sora's skin prickled. Older than a scribe? Older than skyscrapers? Older than the clouds that shifted like ink? "Who?" she asked. The water rippled, and the scribe's voice dimmed. A missing hand, a silenced writer, a name erased from the sky. Sora clutched the silver droplet in her palm. "What does return mean?" she asked. "What am I supposed to bring back?" The scribe's outline flickered. "Not something," she said. "Someone." Sora's heart dropped. "Someone from the sky?" The scribe nodded. "One who once wrote the winds. One whose letters shaped dawn and dusk. One who vanished when the sky forgot her name." Sora stared at the broken fragments floating in the pool. The sky had lost its writer, and now it wanted her back. "Why me?" Sora asked. The scribe lifted a hand made of mist. "Because you carry the brush that remembers her stroke." Sora's fingers moved to the bamboo brush tucked in her hair. "This?" she whispered. The scribe's voice deepened. "You have always wondered why the clouds listen to you. It is because your brush belonged to her." The world seemed to tilt. My brush belonged to the missing skywriter? "Her final tool," the scribe said, "passed from hand to hand until it came to you." Sora's breath shook. She had always felt something alive in the brush. A warmth, a pull, a quiet presence. She thought it was imagination. But now, "What do I have to do?" she asked. The clouds thickened overhead. The pool dimmed. The scribe's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "You must gather the fallen ink." You must rewrite the letter that was broken. And you must call her name back into the sky. Sora swallowed. And if I fail? The scribe's fading outline trembled. Then the sky will lose its voice, and the world will forget its winds. The pool stilled. The scribe vanished. The fragments of cloud ink glowed once, then sank slowly into the dark water. Sora reached out. I won't fail, she whispered. Her reflection looked back at her, but something shimmered behind it. A character, a glowing, trembling character. A new message. Follow the wind that cannot move. Sora rose. She felt its direction immediately. South, toward the mountains, toward the place where the wind had stopped blowing months ago. She tightened her grip on her brush. Hold on, she whispered to the sky. I'll find her. I'll bring her back. The further Sora walked from Asahi village, the more the world changed around her. The wind, once playful and whispering, no longer circled her ankles. Leaves did not tremble. Branches did not sway. Not a single breeze stirred the loose strands of her hair. The silence was heavy. Not the silence of night, but the silence of a breath held too long. She tightened her grip on her bamboo brush. This was exactly what the scribe had told her. Follow the wind that cannot move. And now she stood in the very place where wind had forgotten how to be wind. Before her towered Mount Kaku, a steep and ancient peak whose ridges split the sky like the spine of a sleeping dragon. The mountain had always been respected, feared, and whispered about in old winter tales, but recently, travelers spoke of something stranger, a stillness, coldness, a silence deeper than stone. Sora had never climbed Mount Kaku before, but today she had no choice. The sky's missing rider, the one whose name had been erased, waited somewhere beyond its frozen breath. Sora took a step forward. The world did not move. At the base of the mountain, Sora found the first sign. A leaf, golden, dry, brittle, hovered in the air, not falling, not rising, simply suspended, as though pinned to the world by invisible ink. Sora stepped closer and touched it with the tip of her brush. The moment bamboo met leaf, it rang, a clear, bell-like tone, soft, lonely, ancient. The sound vibrated through the still air and dissolved into nothing. Sora swallowed. The leaf crumbled into silver dust, scattering like broken letters. Someone froze the wind, she thought. Someone who could command the sky itself. She climbed the mountain path, each step echoing unnaturally, as if the mountain itself were listening too closely. She paused. Is someone there? Her voice dissolved. No reply, but she felt a presence. Soft, watching, weightless and heavy at once. She turned slowly. Nothing. She breathed deeply and continued. Trees were frozen midsway. A waterfall hung stuck in the air like a sculpture of glass. Mist clung to the world without drifting. Everything was still. Everything except her. Felt wrong. Like trespassing in a memory not meant to be touched. Halfway up the trail, she found two ancient stones forming a narrow arch. Carved symbols covered the arch, but the letters were blank. Empty outlines, meaningless shapes, carved by someone who never finished writing them. Sora lifted her brush. Skywater glimmered inside its jar. Are these yours? She whispered to no one. Her brush warmed. Her heart quickened. She dipped her brush into sky water and touched the first carved line. It burst into silver light. A voice whispered through the stone. Enter where the wind remembers nothing. Sora inhaled sharply. That wasn't the scribe's voice. It was clearer, softer, sadder. She stepped through the archway. Cold air hit her, sharp, breathless. The world shifted. The frozen sky. The trail opened into a vast plateau. And there she saw it. The sky was frozen. Clouds hung in enormous brushstrokes, half-curved, half-formed, as though waiting for the next stroke to complete their meaning. Some clouds were sliced into fragments, hanging in the air like shattered kanji. Others trembled faintly, trying and failing to reshape themselves. Above all the unmoving forms, a single massive character stretched across the sky, incomplete, missing a final stroke. That's why the world feels wrong, Sora whispered. The missing skywriter had tried to write something enormous, a word powerful enough to shift the wind itself. But she had vanished before finishing. The sentence had stopped. So had the world. Further along the plateau, the path narrowed into a snowy ridge. Something shone beneath the frost. Sora knelt. In the snow rested a brushstroke, thin, elegant, sleeping beneath ice like a buried memory. Her chest tightened. It's hers, she whispered. She didn't know how she knew. She simply did. The missing writer had been here. The stroke resembled Sora's, but more graceful, more certain, more ancient. Sora touched it. Warmth flashed through her. A memory that wasn't hers crashed into her mind. A woman at the peak, riding into the sky, sorrow filling her eyes. I didn't mean to disappear, the woman whispered. Sora gasped. The vision shattered. Snowflakes around her collapsed into tiny glowing letters, then faded. Someone had taken the skywriter. The trail sharpened, leading toward a narrow summit wrapped in cloud walls. Sora walked slowly, heart racing. Then, a figure stood ahead, tall, still, wrapped in mist that did not move. A guardian made from the broken wind. Its voice cracked the silence. Turn back. Sora stood firm. I can't. The guardian stepped forward. Turn back. It shook the mountains quiet. Sora tightened her grip on her brush. The brush glowed faintly. The guardian flinched. She dipped the brush in sky water and wrote a single word into the air. Move. The frozen wind trembled, as if remembering itself. She wrote again. Open. The guardian split apart into drifting characters, and dissolved into the still air. The sky parted before her. Sora stepped through. The summit awaited, and so did the truth. The summit of Mount Kaku did not welcome Sora. It watched her. The clouds curled like pale walls around the plateau, frozen in delicate spirals that had never completed their arc. Mist hung motionless. Snowflakes mid-fall glittered in place like stars trapped in glass. The wind should have howled at this height, but here, not even the thin breath of mountain air stirred. Sora stepped forward. Her footsteps echoed softly, as though the mountain remembered sound but no longer knew how to create it. I know you're here, she whispered. Her voice trembled, but only from truth, not fear. The missing skywriter had left traces everywhere. Brushstrokes in snow, unfinished clouds, echoes carved into stone, and most of all, a sadness too heavy to belong only to the wind. Sora touched her bamboo brush. Please, she whispered. I came to help. Her words drifted upward, vanished, and did not return. At the center of the summit stood a wide stone platform inscribed with an enormous, half-written character, the same incomplete symbol that stretched across the frozen sky. Sora approached it slowly. The stone felt warm under her fingertips, not with heat, but with memory. She knelt beside the carved lines, following each one with her brush. The strokes curled with grace and precision that made her chest ache. "This is her writing," Sora murmured. "It has to be." And the missing line, the last stroke, was carved faintly, barely visible, like a whisper scratched in a dream. "She tried to finish it," Sora whispered, "but something stopped her." Snow glittered on the plateau. Clouds pressed close. The frozen wind waited like a held breath. "One last stroke," she said. She only needed one more to set the sky free. She gripped her brush. The bamboo glowed faintly, recognizing the shape, the meaning, the unfinished word. Before she could write, a soft voice behind her said, "Don't." Sora spun around. A woman stood at the edge of the summit, tall, graceful, her form woven from drifting mist and light, yet not frozen like everything else. She moved. Her eyes were gentle, sad, glowing with faint silver. Sora whispered, You're the missing writer." The woman tilted her head with a weary smile. "I was." Sora's breath caught. She had imagined this moment, but not the weight of it. The woman stepped forward, and though the world around her was still, her presence stirred the snow beneath her feet. "You shouldn't have come this far, child of the brush." "You wrote to me," Sora said. "The clouds answered. The sky told me to return something." The woman looked away. "I did. And I shouldn't have. What does return mean? Who am I supposed to bring back?" The woman's shoulders trembled. "You're not meant to bring anyone back," she whispered. "You are meant to go back." Sora froze. "To go back where?" Sora froze. "To go back where?" "To the world that still breathes." The woman stepped closer, and Sora felt her brush warm in her hand. "Your presence disrupts the silence," the woman said. "I sealed the wind to stop something terrible. If you finish the word, the seal will break." "You're trapped," Sora whispered. The silence answered for her. The woman knelt beside the half-written character and touched the faint outline of the final stroke. "I stopped writing because the sky begged me to," she said. The winds were unraveling. The storms grew hungrier than the world could hold. Every language of the sky was losing its meaning. Sora's throat tightened. "The sky asked for a seal," the woman continued. "A barrier, a pause, a silence. So you froze the wind." "Yes. And in doing so, you froze yourself." The woman lowered her head. "I didn't mean to disappear," she murmured. "But when the last storm broke against this mountain, I used the only spell powerful enough to quiet it." Sora's hands shook. "You wrote the silence, and the silence consumed me. Let me help you." "You cannot," the woman said gently. "You carry my brush, but that does not make you me. If you finish this word, the seal will shatter, the storms will return, and I will be freed only to bring ruin with me." "Then why write return?" Sora pleaded. "Why call to me?" The woman closed her eyes. "Because I was lonely." The weight of a name. Sora stepped forward. If you're lonely, then let me stay. You don't have to be alone. This silence is not a home, the woman whispered. It is a prison. Then let me break it. You don't understand, she said. If the seal breaks, the storm returns. The storm I failed to destroy. Sora felt her brush pulse. The woman recoiled slightly. That brush remembers my name, she said quietly. But I no longer do. Sora's heart clenched. You forgot your own name? When the sky erased the storms, it erased me with them. Sora closed her eyes, the truth settling painfully inside her. That's why the sky called to me, she whispered. It wants me to return your name. Hope flickered weakly in the woman's silver eyes. Sora, please, don't awaken the storm. Sora lifted her brush. I'm not here to awaken it. She dipped the tip into sky water. I'm here to rewrite you. The woman stepped back. Sora, stop. But Sora's decision was already made. Her brush glowed bright as starlight. The frozen air trembled. Clouds stirred for the first time in months. Sora wrote a single stroke, a soft curve filled with memory, compassion, and truth. The woman gasped. That stroke, it's part of my name. Sora wrote again. A snowflake fell. The silence cracked. You're remembering me, the woman whispered. No, Sora said. I'm helping you remember yourself. Clouds bowed. The sky shook. The still air fractured like ice. Sora raised her brush for the final stroke. The stroke that would restore the woman's name and decide the fate of the silence. She breathed once. The mountain waited, and she wrote. Sora had written the final stroke. The silence shattered. Not loudly, but with a soft, trembling breath, like the world remembering how to exhale after holding itself still for too long. The frozen clouds shifted. Snowflakes fell again. Wind stirred weak, newborn, confused. And before Sora stood the woman of clouds, no longer flickering like a fading memory, but more solid, more luminous, her edges mending with every moment. Her voice trembled. My name, I can almost hear it. Sora stepped closer, brush still glowing in her hand. What is it? Tell me. The woman closed her eyes, and the sky itself bent inward, listening. I hear the beginning of it, a sound like the first breath of dawn. Sora waited, but the woman's expression twisted. And then it stops. Sora's heart clenched. You're still missing a stroke, she whispered. The woman nodded. One last piece. Without it, I remain incomplete. A writer without a name cannot command the sky. Sora steadied her breath. Then I'll help you find it. But the woman shook her head slowly. Sora. Something else woke when the silence broke. The world rumbled. Clouds darkened. A cold wind tore across the summit. This one not frozen, not still. Alive. Hungry. Returning. The woman's eyes widened in fear. The storm that lost its shape. It remembers me. May's vision cleared slowly. First the trembling light, then the shapes, and then the world as it truly was. She blinked, feeling the echo of the white flash linger in her blood like embers refusing to cool. When her eyes adjusted, she found herself standing at the mouth of a vast ravine. A ravine carved not by water, nor by wind, but by footsteps. Each cliff wall bore thousands of indentations. Shallow impressions, Deep prints, long sweeping marks that looked almost like trails left by giants. The rocks shimmered faintly with luminous dust, as though remembering every step that had ever passed through them. May swallowed. The steps of who? As if answering her, the air shifted. A faint vibration rippled through the ravine floor, light, almost playful, like the mountain was laughing at her question. Her lantern flickered. The light from the stone steps behind her dimmed. Right forward, she whispered. She took her first step into the ravine. The moment her foot touched the glowing stone path, the world answered. A sound rose around her, soft, layered, endless. Footsteps, but not hers. Some were heavy, some delicate, some sounded like they belonged to creatures with too many legs. Others brushed the stone as lightly as falling snow. Every step overlapped with the next, creating a strange, haunting rhythm. A music made not of instruments, not of voices, but of movement, of every soul who had ever walked this dream path. May tightened her grip on her satchel. The steps continued. The woman stepped protectively in front of Sora. I won't let it take my name back. If it does, I will become its voice again. Sora shook her head. We can stop it together. You don't understand, the woman said, trembling. When I wrote the spell to seal the storm, I gave it part of my name, my identity, my soul. Sora's heart broke. You sacrificed yourself. I had to, the woman whispered. But now, the storm wants the rest of me. Lightning cracked closer. The storm roared. Return. Sora stiffened. That's why it wrote to me. The woman's eyes widened. Yes, it used my remaining strength to call for the missing piece of itself. No, Sora said slowly. It wasn't calling itself back. She looked at the woman. It was calling you. The storm lunged. Without thinking, Sora raised her brush. Silver ink burst forth, slicing the air between them and the storm. The stroke glowed like fire, a living line of light. The storm recoiled, shrieking. Sora felt the brush pulse violently in her hand, hotter than ever before. The woman gasped. That's not just ink. That's skyfire. Skyfire, Sora echoed. Ink born from the space between storm and silence. Sora looked at the brilliant stroke that still hung in the air, vibrating like a trapped note. I can write with this? You can, the woman whispered. But be careful. Skyfire does not obey easily. The storm twisted, gathering its strength. Sora held her brush tighter. Tell me what to do. The storm hurled a blast of fracturing wind toward them. Sora leapt aside, dipped her brush in skyfire, and wrote. Shield. A shimmering barrier erupted, catching the wind like a net. The woman stared at her. You're writing skyscript without learning it. Sora exhaled shakily. I've always seen the shapes in my mind, like the characters were waiting for me. The brush remembers, the woman whispered, and now it teaches. The storm lashed out again, this time with a whip of lightning. Sora wrote, Halt. The lightning froze in midair. Sora gasped. It worked, but the storm snarled and shattered the frozen bolt, sending shards of light flying. One struck Sora's shoulder. She cried out, falling to one knee. Sora! The woman rushed toward her. Sora wiped blood from her arm. I'm okay, she lied. You cannot fight this storm alone. Sora looked up at her. I'm not alone. The woman helped Sora to her feet. We need to weaken it, Sora said. How do we stop an unfinished storm? The woman hesitated. There's only one way. We must finish the sentence. By giving it your name, Sora whispered. Yes. Sora shook her head fiercely. No, there has to be another way. Give me a different stroke, an alternative shape, anything. There is none. The storm roared again, ripping through the sky. Clouds tore away like pages from a burning book. The woman reached out and took Sora's trembling hands. My child of the brush, listen to me. Sora's breath hitched. You must live. The sky will need a writer when I am gone. No, Sora whispered. I won't lose you. You never had me to lose, the woman said softly. I lost myself long ago. The storm reared back. The sky turned black. Everything shook. Sora screamed. There has to be a way. The woman closed her silver eyes. There is. Sora froze. What is it? You must write my name. Sora stared at her. But you don't remember it. You do. Sora choked. Me? How? The brush remembers, the woman said gently. And it chose you. The storm lunged. Write it now. Sora lifted her brush. Skyfire burned along its bristles. The storm was seconds away. Sora closed her eyes. She breathed in the still air. And she wrote, one stroke, a curving line like the first crescent moon. The storm shrieked. She wrote the second, sharp and rising like climbing wind. The storm shuddered. The third, soft as breath. The woman gasped. That is. The storm crashed toward them, and Sora wrote the final stroke. A single line that carried dawn, memory, identity, love. The world erupted in light. The storm screamed, not in rage, but in relief. The woman whispered a single word. Asterisk, asterisk, Iuna. Asterisk, asterisk. Her name. The sky bowed. The storm dissolved into silver dust. The woman stood radiant, whole, her eyes filled with tears. You returned me. Sora lowered her brush, trembling. You called me. The sky after the storm. When the light faded, the world stood perfectly still. Not the stillness of fear, not the stillness of silence, but the stillness after a deep, grateful breath, the kind the earth takes when a long winter finally lifts. Sora lowered her brush. Its bristles no longer burned with skyfire, but they still shimmered faintly, as though remembering the shapes it had written. In front of her, Iuna, no longer a fading spirit of broken script, no longer a nameless whisper of the clouds, stood whole beneath the clearing sky. Her silver hair fluttered in the soft returning wind. Her eyes shone with the warmth of a dawn that had waited too long. She looked at Sora with a smile that held worlds. You remembered me, she whispered. Sora tried to answer, but her throat tightened. Tears, warm and sudden, filled her eyes. I didn't want you to disappear. Iuna touched her cheek gently, her hand cool as the mist, warm as a mother's memory. You didn't save me, she said softly. You restored me. The clouds above them parted like blooming strokes of white ink. The sky felt alive again, breathing, listening. For the first time in centuries, the wind carried a name. The village below felt the change before seeing it. Children stopped playing, staring as the wind brushed against their skin like a returning friend. Old men straightened their backs without knowing why. The elders, those who remembered fragments of sky rites, stood at their doors with trembling hands. "Look," one whispered, "the sky is awake." A single silver line streamed gently across the heavens, a writer's stroke. High on the summit, Ayuna gazed at the world she once protected. Her expression was serene, but heavy with goodbye. "You're leaving," Sora said. Ayuna nodded. "My name has returned to me, and with it the rest of my soul. The sky no longer needs me as its anchor." "But I need you," Sora whispered. Ayuna's smile held infinite softness. "No, little writer, you need the world, and the world needs you." She placed a fingertip on Sora's forehead. A silver light blossomed, like the birth of a star. "What is this?" Sora breathed. "My memory," Ayuna whispered. "My story, my lost fragments, and every stroke of skyscript I once shaped." Visions rushed through Sora, forgotten alphabets of clouds, winds written like prayers, storms shaped like sentences. Then the visions faded. "The sky will hear you," Ayuna said softly. "It already does." Ayuna's form began to blur, ink dissolving into morning fog. "Ayuna!" Sora cried, reaching out. "Don't chase me," she whispered. "Look up." Sora looked. Clouds curved into glowing shapes, long strokes forming a final message. "You gave me back my name, so I give you the sky." Sora's tears fell. Light thinned Ayuna into silver dust. Her last words floated on the wind. "Write bravely, write kindly, write the world awake." Then she was gone. The first letter of a new sky. Sora stood alone. The brush in her hand shimmered faintly, remembering Skyfire. She lifted it, and for the first time didn't wait. She wrote, a soft curved stroke, the smile of a new moon. A breeze rose. A second stroke, wind danced. A third, the sky brightened. She laughed through her tears. "It works!" The wind wrapped around her like a warm hug. The sky whispered, "Write again." So she did. She wrote morning, the east glowed. She wrote calm, the valley softened. She wrote home, the breeze carried familiar scents. And finally, she wrote one small gentle name, Yuna. The clouds glowed silver in answer. The child who changed the sky. When Sora returned to the village, the people gathered. "You were on the mountain. Did the sky change? Was that you writing?" Sora smiled quietly. "I was writing a letter." A young boy tugged her sleeve. "Can you teach me?" Sora knelt. "Maybe one day, when the sky is ready." She stood and looked upward. The clouds drifted in silver shapes, Ayuna's name lingering. Sora lifted her brush again. The sky waited, and she wrote, "Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth."